I was hoping you guys were playing tonight. And then you have this thing like snow dog. And you stand here, and that's the handle. And it's like, well, it's like a zero turn mower. It's a zero turn mower. It's kind of like that. And yeah, so it's yeah. He goes out on the ice. He has thinner tires that are it's good stuff. It's great fun. It's a great way to just be outside and keep up with the exercise. Good fun. Good clean fun. Down there. Up north for now.
We just came down today.
For 2 days.
It's here.
It was a skip.
It was gonna rain, so we said, let's go home. Actually, we already going back.
How are you? Good. Today, mate.
And Henry's back.
100%.
So I don't see.
It's rain a lot more up there.
Are we ready to start?
No, it's gonna go.
Do we want, are we ready to record?
No.
So hopefully almost
Are you
ready.
doing?
We're having technical difficulties.
Hopefully it changes back.
In this.
Snow tonight.
We haven't typically done that.
No more?
We never have.
We did. We started it.
Oh, we did?
Yeah, I started it. And then nobody, I don't know what anybody was doing.
Oh. Who started it?
We did.
So what is that? next
What?
letter?
Oh, I did start it. We
Yeah,
turned it down to the
Because
file.
this.
In there.
No, that's it, HDMI.
We did start it.
There's one over here.
You never started.
Yes,
Oh,
we
it
did.
started.
Yes, we did. Last
Started.
fall, we will certainly.
Right now.
Oh, no, we didn't start it
See,
now.
now I can't get
bigger
out.
No, but we, that's only done at the.
Welcome down.
Oh, it took you.
So it's to you, but are you waiting? I don't know.
Yes.
So.
All right, you're not.
Do you have an accent now?
It's the very.
Pardon? Do you have an accent?
No.
So when I did, I'm trying to figure it out, make sure I can find the one side of the room.
Mel Brooks. Thank you. Oh, Frank, that was a rhyme with me. Thank you. I put some
We came home, it was raining. It was melting. Came home this morning.
Yeah.
Back up Saturday.
Oh, I was gonna say, you're not, you're up there the whole winter.
Yeah.
So you gotta come in.
Fantastic. It's like, they haven't really got any big storms, but it's like 2-3 inches of mountain snow every day.
Yeah.
You got powder on top of the roofs every day. It's just been fantastic, but it's raining, so they're open 100% every trail. All the streets. You go to Killington.
I don't need it now.
Antique's got more snow than. They got over 300 inches, so.
Really?
Yeah.
I'll read. She's having it. I mean, they've had some good winter.
Good year.
Good.
Hold on.
Everybody's getting there. You're getting there.
Difficulties,
Yeah.
you know,
Everybody's getting there.
all right, so there it is. For you.
My godfather passed.
So I gotta minimize.
Minimize it.
For his.
minimize this.
Okay. Yeah. Right there with, thank you. Right there with, she was recording. Okay. Yeah, thanks. So, we're gonna call the meeting to order at 7:05. Welcome, everybody. We have a full house here. We have an audience of citizens. If you'd like to just please state your name and address.
Judy Preston, Lakewood Lane,
Yeah.
5 Lakewood Lane.
Thank you.
Mike, speaking on the road. Yeah. Alright, okay, so, we, as far as the, last, minutes of last meeting, do we have any adjustments, edits, additions, deletions?
Gentlemen in the back.
Yeah,
missed that.
just, it's okay, it's okay.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, so, under planning and zoning coordination, I had Savannah Kitchen reported the setback change from 25 feet to the lake edge, changed to 12 feet. And the change was to accommodate larger sheds from 120 square feet to 200 square feet. That wasn't wrong, but it needed to be explained a little more, so I called Savannah, and she explained it a little better. Savannah Kitchen reported, this is what's going in there, and, Phyllis, I'll give you this, so you can change that.
Thank you.
So Savannah Kitchen reported that the change in the setback distance from 25 feet to 12 feet from the lake edge has been proposed. This would be for sheds under 200 square feet. The commission will be hearing this proposed regulation change along with others at their March 10th meeting. So that's the change. Plus I spelled her name terribly wrong.
Why is that change being made?
Well, I don't know. And that was another reason we said that maybe we should put that on the agenda. If we have some input on that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and we do have a, you know, planning and zoning coordination piece to what we do.
Right.
So, I mean, that's a perfect example of,
So there's a public hearing March 10th? or
March 10th, I don't think, no.
Monday.
You just said that there's.
Is it specific to the lake?
No, specific to all changes to planning and zoning.
Look, we were interested
Correct.
in the impact on the lakefront properties,
Correct.
which is why.
We have
I
the vast majority
think
of
so.
non-conforming lots. So do we want something closer?
That's the change.
And what's the impact if we put
Yeah.
something?
Well,
closer?
that's why we wanted it kept open.
well, yeah, why don't we add that to the agenda? As new business, and then we can discuss it.
But someone should attend that March 10th meeting. When's the
Well-
decision?
That's why I wanna add it to the,
Oh, today.
You have two.
Yes.
Thank you.
yes,
And I had a comment on the lake management plan and just not, keeping it on open business for something. I know, Mike, you had said there's an immediate plan to update it, but I think we should keep it in the backs of our minds. At some point, we should be updating that. And I suggested we add it under open business.
I didn't hear what that was, I'm sorry.
The watershed management, is it watershed management plan? Was that,
Can't believe that's.
is that the name
Yes,
of
that's what it was.
that's the name
Yes.
of the document
yes,
that we,
Review and update.
add as open business. We keep it there to remind ourselves that it should be updated at some point, because it's quite old.
yep, well, it's,
And maybe it's still completely,
I don't know if you have the most recent, because when Dan O'Neill was here, and that had to be within the last, 3 or 7 years, we've updated it at that point.
yeah,
oh, then I don't have the most.
The most recent on file in the town is 1997, I think.
Oh, yeah, well.
So we need to find that.
That was Chicksfield.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly, that's what I.
Dan did nutrient allocation, that section of it,
Yes,
Yeah, the form.
which Savannah wants to now address. And so that section's been updated.
Mike, do we have an amendment? There was a motion on the table to amend the minutes. I didn't hear anybody.
well, I was, yeah, it wasn't a motion, but it is now. And, all in favor? Aye. Any
what
opposed?
minutes are we voting on?
Last meeting.
Or February?
February,
Yeah, I'm abstaining because I wasn't here.
Yeah,
and so my, okay.
all right. Okay, we have our audience of citizens. Does anybody have anything that is not on the agenda tonight? No. Okay. All right, any communications?
You want to- The BOS or you, last night's meeting? Oh, yeah, go ahead. I just would like to update all of LMAC. Muffy and I attended last night's meeting for the Board of Selectmen. Steve Everett, and this was just, well, she represents the CLA, I was representing myself. Was looking for input, and officially, I think he'll be coming to LMAC relative to the gate access key program. It is the sentiment, at least I took away from last night's meeting, that the risk outweighs the benefit to have gate keys. That was the sentiment that the board, there were no motions, there were no updates. However, they did ask for possible solutions or ways for those, in particular fishermen, who want to get on the lake earlier than 8 AM, which is when the gate officially would be available to be opened with appropriate inspections. We shared 3 potential updates, and some of this has been because I've had some individual conversations with some people on the lake. So, Phyllis, I'll give you these copies, but what we shared was the potential to reserve moorings for those who want to get on the lake at a time, example, 5 AM to 8 AM. And those moorings could be reserved for fishermen. They call the night before and they place their boats on those moorings so that they could get out and access potential. And there's pros and cons to all this, we get it. The second was to consider certain days and hours for lake access for those who want to fish with a paid inspector. Example, Tuesday and Thursday, 5 to 8 AM. The third was have a reservation line, which this one seemed to be open to the Board of Selectmen, where the night before, fishermen or anyone who wants to use the lake early, typically fishermen, reserves a time. Therefore, they're committing that they want to use the lake at a certain time. An inspector on that reservation line meets them as needed. So you're not paying someone for 3 hours and no one shows up. You're paying someone kind of a per diem when they need to be there. Example again, between 5 AM and 8 AM. So those 3 were discussed. There was no official or formal motion, but the Board of Selectmen clearly wants to move forward, understanding the risk of invasive species and the risk, unfortunately, of those who don't follow the rules, putting boats on the lake that aren't allowed. There you have it.
Yeah, so we made recommendations last year. And the biggest was just enforcement, monitoring cameras. Was there any feedback of what happened last summer of why something is still not working?
Yeah, you'll have to go to the board. Steve Everett gave some examples of boats that shouldn't have been put on this lake that were at because of the key program. And the risk, the high risk of invasive species. I think Muffy's next update on the workshop she just attended Saturday. X% of the lakes in the state of Connecticut, I forget what you said, 16.
Yeah, do you want me to do
Yeah,
that
so-
update now?
Muffy,
Want me to do that
Let me-
update now, Mike? or-
just-
yeah, hold on.
Before we get into that, I mean, we all understand the risk. It's just, were they not able to monitor the cameras? You know, these are the questions that we should be answered. We also said, come up with a car key program possibly for this year. Did they look into that?
But there's no inspection. People are putting boats on the lake without being inspected for aquatic invasive species. And that is the huge risk.
Well,
We
that,
had
right,
to, we had to pass a test. If you took the test, you had to
well, right, but this has,
discipline yourself. So
clearly the disciplining themselves is not working.
it didn't, it doesn't work. I don't see anyone, do we have invasive species now? If we
Well, but-
went from this point to that point,
They're
we
passing,
don't have them, so it is working.
they're passing the key around. So
So that
people
person
that
should have
we
been
don't, that we
shut off.
don't test or inspect are, they're just passing the key around. So there's no way to police
Well,
that.
that's supposed to be what the cameras were gonna do. So you take the key away from that person because it's
I
on
brought
camera.
people in
I've had people that boats have broke their mooring, have ended up at my dock, and I said, I'll hold it for you till you can get someone to
Plus, the
come down
moorings
and
are
open the
pretty
gate.
full.
And they said, oh, don't worry, I know a fisherman. I know a fisherman that'll let me in. But that's a key.
And the other thing that happened was the
Officially.
gate was left open. Somebody would come with a key and open it, and then it was left
Okay, so it's
open.
enforcement could not be done. Because that's all
I think
was
that's a
supposed to be
bigger
on
issue than-
camera and
Bill,
license plates and all.
Bill O'Brien, a selectman, asked for the data.
Yeah.
And Mark responded that there is no real data that is going to show us that a boat with AIS went on or did not go on. But there is data to show that the key was being passed and that there were boats on the lake that should not have been on the lake, whether it was an engine that was over horsepower, whatever. I'm paraphrasing what you said last night.
That we, in order to see who's gone on the lake, all we know is that when. At 8 o'clock, when the rec director arrives, if there's a trailer in the parking lot, we know someone's on the lake.
Correct.
He doesn't, by normal procedure, backtrack and watch 4 hours of
I
video.
thought that's what we agreed was supposed to happen last year.
You'd have to watch 4 hours
Yeah,
of video.
that's forward.
I don't think it's too
All right, well,
speedy.
why did we agree to do that? then?
What we agreed to, we got a better camera. So that if we know when there's a problem, we can go to that time with a better lens and get pictures of who it is and license plates.
Motion sensor or something.
Well, it's not that sophisticated, but
It turns on when there's action, is that how the camera looks?
yes. movement.
So there shouldn't be 4 hours of film.
Yeah, I don't get it, but.
Did the camera get changed?
Well,
Yes,
we
we have a
don't,
new-
Greg, we don't have somebody just standing there from 8 in the morning until.
Last year, we talked about the 2 phases. The simple phase was just to have someone in the rec department, doesn't have to be exactly every morning, just go through the camera, and it's not gonna be at 2 in the morning, it's gonna be at 4 or 5 in the morning. And see who's coming and going and seeing if someone's letting in another boat. Or,
They pass.
that's my understanding. I mean, I even talked to the Marine Patrol last year about that, how's that going and.
Did they say they ever backtrack movie
No.
footage and watch it? I've never heard that as a requirement.
I don't think we had it officially as a procedure. I do know we spoke to.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
the second
So
phase.
how many keys were issued? You know how many keys were
Around
issued?
50.
50 keys?
Wow.
Well, that's not bad.
Well, and the other thing that is unaddressed is the fact that even if we knew party A went in at 7:45, party B went in at 6:30, there's no evidence that an inspection was done.
Exactly.
And we do have evidence and know by admission that some of those people fish in Mono Pond, Lake Williams, and Columbia Lake in the same
Coventry.
day, in the same morning. And if they go there and there's no fish, they come right over here. Are they gonna take 20 minutes to fully inspect their boat? That's,
That's
that's
what they-
where
supposed to be
we
doing.
have, that's a question. We can't say yes or we can't say no, but we know we can tighten it up to make sure that it's inspected, and that's what we're talking about. We don't wanna put somebody on their honor, we wanna have an inspection.
Okay, last year we were having people on their honor.
The last 5 or
Threatening
6.
to get the key removed, so if we're changing now, that's fine, but.
And I really think the change is about the condition of the lake.
Yeah.
The lake 5 years ago is much different than the lake today. And there's a high degree of concern because in our annual report, our lake consultant even recommended a $70,000 heirloom
I know.
treatment for this lake.
Yeah, but
And the
that's not affected by fishing,
The
but the invasive species is.
invasive species is, okay, but that concern raises to them that this lake is at a high risk for the potential to spend a lot of money to remediate something, and they want to prevent it. And the 2 things are phosphorus and aquatic invasive species. That's what the discussion was last night.
And,
I'm just reporting what they said.
and it would seem to me the risk to Columbia with invasive species is more that is closer at hand all the time. I think there's even a place in Hebron.
There's my
So-
grill at the bottom.
So I
There's
went-
no question about that, right? It's just a matter of what we talked about last year, didn't work, didn't happen. And so now they want to move towards just inspections, period.
Yeah.
So either hire someone to get there at 5 AM for 3 hours, or don't allow them in. If that's the direction they wanna go. No more honor system.
So could you have a, you know, a group of private people with their own keys? I mean. If someone called me and opened a gate.
I am
I'd go
not
over
gonna
and open
speak
the
for the
gate.
Board of Selectmen. I'm
See what
just
I mean?
reporting
Like,
why we were asked to be there. I had
You
talked to
deputize,
Steve.
deputize 3 people.
Right, you know, 10 people, 5 people.
3 people.
It- it seems-
You'd probably get the 5 fishermen that come every day wanna do it.
There seems
And then
to
you're
be,
solving the
support in the board for eliminating the key program.
Right.
And
Correct.
having someone who's accountable to the town do the inspection. I think that that's the leaning. I've actually heard the one selectman has stated with invasive species around, why don't we just eliminate motorboats altogether?
Correct.
That
Okay,
was said,
so,
that
you
was
know, this is the
stated.
tone at
Yeah.
the selectmen's,
Right.
because they don't wanna spend X hundreds of thousands of dollars to do the treatment programs that may come about because of invasive species. And so we're, you know, what can we do that's less expensive than that? And one thing you can do less expensive than that is have an employee there a couple times a week. Now, there's, gonna be, grousing, and so maybe they'll say, all right, 5 times a week or every day, but, you know, that's a political decision. The decision to protect the lake by inspection, is really one that, we can weigh in on, and the selectmen can, figure out how much the town can afford to pay and how to regulate that.
So I don't think you're gonna get any different boats, you're gonna get the same boats with the key system or without, the same people in the same boats. Will-
Yes, but they will
will
be
be exactly the same boats.
But they'll be inspected.
But they'll be inspected then.
There'll be somebody saying, were you just at Mono Pond before you came here? Or
And
were
as you
you
boat
just
Yeah.
at Coventry Lake before you came here?
And so, in an answer to the selectman that wants to eliminate motorboats on the lake altogether, I would say, why don't we first require that anybody who has used the boat at Mono Pond has to go to, Public Works and be washed off and have a certificate from Public Works to hand to the inspector, so
And you need
it's even
somebody
more
at
than.
Mount Pond, though, to say they were there.
That's what they do in New Hampshire, New Hampshire,
You're right.
on your way out of the lake,
It's gonna be hard to.
all lakes have a wash station. It's not on the way in, it's on the way out, so when they go somewhere else, they wash the
Smart.
boats that they know
Smart.
have hydraulic.
And so,
So do we,
So that's the
so,
same kind of thing you're talking about.
so do we have, are we, is there any action here that we're taking?
Just reporting.
Just reporting, okay, but is that turning into any recommendation or action to the board? of
I would
Selectmen?
wait for the selectmen to bring it to us. I think it's a hot potato. And they're leading the charge, and we're their advisors. If they want advice, they'll come.
Yep, fair enough.
Should we ask for the evidence? Cause if I'm a fisherman, I'm like, hey, I just play by the rules all the time. Who's breaking the rules? What evidence do you have? Should we ask the selectmen for that?
Well, I think we need to also, you know, keep in mind that we're a small town with limited resources. And, you know, we don't have, you know, fishing outside of hours is not a right, it's a privilege. Okay, and if it's not treated with respect and there are issues, then how do you enforce that? Well, you might as well have someone there 24 hours a day. That's not within the budget of the town. I don't even have to ask him.
No,
So,
I'm not saying.
well, but I'm saying enforcement ends up
I'm saying
being,
is-
thank you. That ends up being, you know.
I'm saying if I, as a fisherman, and I'm not, right, but I'm gonna wanna know. A request, hey, you know, what happened, you know, what, I understand, you get
we-
the feeling is that it's being misused.
Yeah,
No, it's not a feeling, it's not a feeling.
The gate was left open on
The gate-
multiple occasions, I know that, I've seen it myself and I've reported it myself. So that's not a
And
feeling.
there have been, I remember this, there have been fishermen who have said, yes, I'm one of the biggest offenders.
Thank you.
Those were, those
So,
words
right on.
By offender, what do you mean, of using the lake, of leaving the gate open?
of leaving the gate, of not using the key
Leaving the
properly.
gate open, and I just came from another lake.
I just came from another lake and didn't wash my boat.
Oh, well, then you shouldn't have been allowed.
Well,
Well, this is why there's some that are.
but it's a rabbit hole. It's,
It's unfortunate, it's
Self-
always the
self-watching
tiny
gate.
few. You know, it's
So-
always-
all right.
So,
Plain
sorry,
plain
Mike.
devil's advocate.
Yeah, fair enough, and we need to look at all these things, because, I'll go back to
Remember
when.
last year's meeting with all the fishermen,
Well, I get it, and
We were all there.
we were all there, and by the way, I think, I don't know if you were around for the gate meeting, cause that was a treat.
Over there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so,
I'm talking.
but.
I think,
We still have-
I think the
No,
system's
no,
working
it was
just fine,
wonderful.
I don't see any problem.
When
at
I
all.
see-
It's
Came in
not,
at the
there's
end.
folks that are in the water that came in without going through an inspection, not even registered.
Yes.
Not
There used to be a lot
even
more unregistered, but
Wow.
Mike, can I
didn't
just
even need to
mention
register years ago.
the seminar that I went to?
Yeah, please, and then we can go to,
And we
yeah,
can move
this
on.
was the watershed man.
No, I went to the, it's not sponsored by the Connecticut Federation of Lakes, but it's the Office of Invasive Species.
Yeah,
Uh,
hey, guys,
He's accusing my father.
No,
of
no,
not
stop.
registering.
Stop, please, Martha is speaking,
I
please,
realize that, but.
please, Martha, please,
Martha,
I'm sorry.
any more authority? I'm only teasing you, Mike. So I went to this Office of Invasive Species workshop on Saturday in New Haven. And I will send this, I apologize, I meant to get the slides out to you, I got them a day or two ago. I know Judy, you've seen them, because you wrote to me today, and I'll get them to the rest of this group. Very interesting, of course, there was a lot about learning how to ID the various invasive species, but the theme, of course, everyone's focus is on hydrilla because of what's happening in the Connecticut River. So I'm not gonna bore you with all the details, you'll see it in the slides, but what was interesting is that species is unique to the Connecticut River. It started in Agawam and it's going down the river, but it's going with the flow of the water, basically, so it's not been seen upstream of Agawam. The other hydrilla that's been spotted around the state is a different species. It's still a bad actor. They've surveyed over 400 lakes in the state, and they've seen it in 60% of the lakes that they've surveyed.
Wow.
And near us, that includes, and they gave, and you'll see on the slides, the timelines as it's spreading, they're identifying this. Coventry Lake and Lower Bolton Lake had it, so it's quite close to us, and Henry, I did also hear that it was in the pond down below Skyline Farm.
It is.
On the Hebron line.
I actually
so-
have pictures of it. Greg Bugby sent me down from deep to see it.
So that's very concerning.
Martha, did they say any of this was being contributed to the geese transferring?
Somebody asked that question, Phil. And Greg Bugby said it was a very interesting question. They didn't have any real evidence that it's being picked up and dropped, which was what would have to happen. It would have to be on the goose, and then the goose flies and lands somewhere and is bringing fragments, basically. It's fragments that started, that break off, and which is why
And if they
boats.
eat it and digest it, that'll kill it.
I don't think that that's a source.
Because that pond that Mary's talking about, there's no boats that go on that,
Oh, there are,
on that little pond?
yes, it was right at the boat launch where the hydrilla was,
Really?
yeah.
Wow,
And Greg said that there are rowboats with motors.
wow,
In any case, we do have to be concerned that
absolutely.
birds or other organisms can be vectors.
Yeah.
Right. Assume they are, right?
Yeah,
So I'll send the slides to you guys.
Great.
Thank you.
It's very, very informative.
Thank you.
How'd you hear about
Oh, you're not reading your CLA
Oh.
emails, Craig, 'cause I sent it to everybody.
it? Which month?
Busted.
The Connecticut Federation of Lakes sent an email out to us at the CLA and Mary pushed it out to all our members. So,
yeah, the CLA is a member of the Connecticut Federation of Lakes,
Okay,
so we get all their data and all their information.
that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, okay, moving on. So next on our agenda is permit review.
Yeah,
So we have 17 Sleepy Hollow.
correct. Could you pull up the PowerPoint? To initiate this, I just want to give a heads up to everyone, so we understand the process. The LMAC subcommittee, and unfortunately Bob and Jim, for personal reasons, could not be here tonight, but I have been in close communication with them via telephone and text and email relative to this particular application. But overall, and Jim and I talked about this, we want everyone to understand, we get an application as a subcommittee, we do research, we do site visits, and we've done several with Mike, and he's obviously very aware of that. Our subcommittee brings this forth to you with our opinion. We're not even gonna make motions anymore, the motions should come from LMAC. And we're gonna share that opinion with you based on what we believe is the research and the data, and we must live by the standards of construction, standard guidelines that we have. So we just want that to be kind of set, because as we move forward, some of this can get a little convoluted, but I think it's a good perspective. The very first slide shows two pictures, just to give you an overview of, can you go back to the first slide? Of what we're dealing with. This is Mr. Dobush's right of way. This is Sleepy Hollow. It's coming down this way. It's about 15 feet, I believe, at the lakefront. There's a swale here. He's put in pavers over the last 3 to 4 years. There's been an update and a restoration of 6 stairs here. And the lake bed starts where you see those bricks, and we'll get back to them. He also has a dock, 5 by 20. But just to give you that perspective, because all of this adds into the opinions that we're gonna give you in terms of our recommendations, okay? In addition, on the lake bed currently, okay, are bricks, which we'll get to in number 3, and 2, for lack of better words, plastic contraptions called stairs or steps that unfortunately were put into the lake on or around 2019 or 2020 without permits. We went back to the town and looked, there were no permits, and Mike was unsure of even who placed them on the lake.
The steps with the hands.
Okay,
So
somebody-
those showed up in like 2020.
Now, in August, we, Board of Selectmen approved that they be removed. They've yet to be removed, and we'll get to that later. But that just gives you the whole perspective. So the first thing, which I think we can pretty much show the slide, is, next slide. He's asking to redo the top, okay, redeck with approved materials. And he wants to add a pie-shaped wedge to align with the wall. You see from the pictures, it's a 5 by 20 dock. Okay, well within reason, and the dock is in okay shape, but he clearly wants to redo the top, and it's probably time within the next 3 to 6 months. There is a little extension here, which is, I guess, to moor a boat or to affix a boat, and then we'll get back to these stairs. Here's the pie shape that he wants to add, and when we reviewed it and looked at it and said from a safety point of view, it probably makes sense just to finish the dock off. So our opinion and our recommendation to LMAC is to approve this, okay, which is the next slide. We advise the BOS to approve it, assuming an LMAC motion. The only hiccup is, and I spoke with Isabel Kislik, the wetlands agent, any changes that are being made also has to be approved by wetlands and or IWWC. So work can't be done until it's approved by wetlands and the Board of Selectmen. That may mean you miss the March period, but as of November first, I think we're in an odd year, you can go back and have that redeck.
How come wetlands? Because it's not on land. So
Wetlands approves anything on land and on the lake. They don't end at the lake wall. This IWWC is a mandated,
okay, when I talk to Isabel, she says they stop at the seawall. And LMAC recommendations come anything past this.
we do it in partnership.
Right.
So the next Board of Selectmen meeting isn't until March 18th, which means we're probably missing the construction period. So I would ask for a motion to advise the BOS to approve the redecking of the dock at the appropriate time, which will be the November 1st to March 15th, 2026 construction period.
So I have a question.
Is that a was that a motion?
Well, yes, I
Okay,
mean,
so-
we'll put a motion on and then we can
Well,
just,
then we can discuss it, right, so if that's a motion, I'll second the motion, and any discussion.
This is a grandfathered dock. Because we don't allow docks on right of ways. They're less than 50 feet.
correct.
And so, you know, the structure should be conforming to what was there before. And at some time in the past, there wasn't that jut that needed to have a protective thing put in there. I can see that that's okay, but when we've had these things before, we've also talked with neighbors. And we also have a scenario here where there are a number of people on that street that have a right of way over this particular property. And generally in the past, we usually listen to what they have to say about infringement of the right of way. Their right of way is to pass and repass the lake over that 15 feet. This is taking up part of that 15 feet. In the past, the dock had been a community dock. I know, my uncle moored his boat there, and he was a lake patrolman. And the community helped maintain that dock, and so forth. Now, times have changed, and Mr. Bilbush has the dock, but I question whether we shouldn't be looking at some of our past precedents on this in terms of information gathering and seek input from others, neighbors who don't have that 50-foot protection, 25-foot protection that we normally would require between a dock and a neighbor's wall. Maybe the findings have no problem with it. And maybe Carl Foster has no problem with it, but, and, part of it's grandfathered anyway, so they wouldn't have much to say in it, but I just don't know whether any of these questions have been looked at, that's all.
Can I just say something, okay?
Please.
My everybody, I think some people are under the impression that I just bought this property and started using it. My family has used that property since 1952. I've used that property all my life. My sister's used it all her life. I remember when Guy Beck had his boat there. In 1968, he stopped putting his boat there because he had a fight with Don Hartzog Senior and had to move the boat from being next to the dock to being tied to the dock and anchored out. Then he stopped doing lake patrol, and then I put an aluminum boat there. Same boat I'm using to this day from 1968. I have seen that property over 64 years. My sister's, I'm not gonna say how many more years, she's older than I am. I've seen that dock go from 3 feet to 4 feet, 25 feet long, and it's changed, umpteen times over the years. My dad built the wall with the docks attached to it. So there's nobody that knows that property better than I. Let me just finish, okay? So I know it's grandfathered in, and the thing about it's gone for 3 years, you know. All the requests I'm making are reasonable requests. You know, I'm not asking to extend the dock another 5 feet, I'm not putting an L at the end of it. You know, every enhancement I've come to the board with was to improve the dock for everybody that uses it. Carl, the Vinings will happily go along with anything I do to that property because I'm improving. You know, I don't like those ugly stairs. So I will want to put in nice stairs.
Okay, so you're getting off topic.
Yeah.
All right, so we are talking about a 1 foot by 3 foot piece of dock here.
Exactly.
That's all we're talking about, that piece. So,
From
is there any further discussion on this 1 foot by 3 foot wedge of dock?
But he's also talking about replacing the planks, right?
What we are talking about
Someday.
Is the triangle?
Well,
is, I'm sorry, redeck with approved materials, which is well within the guidelines.
Correct,
And add a 1 foot by 3 foot
eye shape.
pie shaped wedge. This is all we're talking about. So let's stay on point here.
But it's within the guidelines, but is it within the, what the present, with the dock is?
Is it within,
Is it grandfather, is guidelines are one thing, you know, 5 by 20, grandfathering is something else, is it 5 feet wide now?
yeah, it's 5 by 20, I measured it,
Okay,
yes, it is 5 by 20, I personally measured.
yeah, okay, so
But that little section is beyond the dock, so
It's a
it's actually
small
not part of
piece.
the dock, it's part of the land.
well, it's going to be a slight extension of the dock.
Correct,
And that's all we're talking about here,
correct.
is redecking worn out deck boards and putting in a small wedge.
Question I have about all of this is I hear just redecking and just trying to fix this for safety. I thought that we were allowed to make repairs outside of the March to November period. If this is
We-
considered a repair, or is this considered new?
Has to be an emergency repair. Is this an emergency to redeck someone's dock?
If you're gonna walk through it.
Well, depends on how bad
It
it is.
depends on how bad the decking is.
I have walked the decking, we have pictures of the decking, it's reasonable that in November, this.
It's not a safety.
It's not a safety.
Okay,
It's
that's
not-
just what I wanted to clarify.
Fair,
Thank
fair
you.
enough, fellas. That's fair, that's a fair
Yeah.
question.
If it becomes a safety, you can come back, right?
Yeah, so we need to keep in mind timing of what we approve, but right now. All that's on the table is the 1 by 3 wedge and the decking.
Correct.
Okay, do we have any other further discussion on this?
Call the question.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. So moved,
We made-
approved, and moving on.
Progress.
Okay,
Yes,
next.
thank you, that's what I was getting at.
The second request,
And I just want, I'm sorry. If you want to work outside of the time frame, you're gonna have to go to the Board of Selectmen on that.
no, it would be an emergency repair application here.
Oh, here, I'm sorry.
And
I think that it was a, wait till next year.
Okay, well, either way, yes, my mistake, you're right, it would be a,
So here's the second of the 3 requests from the January 2nd application. Mr. Dobush is asking to install steps to a ladder on the dock at the right of way. All right. Initially, he said he wanted to build 4 new steps and a handrail and extend it out from the ladder that exists there. You will see pictures. The ladder was installed as a temporary fix, according to Mr. Dobush, many years ago. It allowed for safer entrance to the lake, etc. Mr. Dobush and I spoke, and on March 4th, he asked to adjust and add 6 steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, he sent me these pictures, to be 32 or 36 inches wide to extend, and those steps will extend about 5 feet into the lake. Okay.
Where?
Attached to the dock. Next slide. Before I get to this, all I want to say about this is Mr. Dovish and I have had several conversations. It's obvious there may have been steps, 2008 or 2011, in that period of time. Our pictures from LMAC are fuzzy, his pictures from Google are fuzzy, so it's hard to say. But he has been on this property forever, and we're assuming that there may have been a set of stairs at that dock back in the 2008 to 2011 time, okay? In applying our guidelines, we have to look at first docks. Why do we permit docks? Safe mooring and reasonable access to the lake. Section, also in section 3, all right, I want to point out that there is already reasonable access to the lake because there are stairs at the right of way. Not on the dock, at the right of way, at the lake front. And those stairs were remortared and done a few years ago. They're off the town lake bed and they allow users access and safety to enter and leave the lake. These stairs, not on the dock, are 16 feet from the dock. So we're asking people to walk from stairs to have a safe lake access. In addition, we have section 8 of our guidelines that says, if something's abandoned, such as in 2011, after 3 years, if it has not been maintained, then it is considered abandoned around the lake, or and Henry, I ask you to speak to that, but let me get through this. And then the property size, Henry has already brought this up. Can we allow something that's abandoned and now wants to be put back or put on the lake 15, 14 years later? Pictures show this better. So the next slide kind of shows where we're at. I pointed this out before. Here are the steps to the lake. Here's where he wants, and this plastic thing is essentially what Mr. Dobush wants to replace. There are old posts indicating a ladder. Our LMAC pictures show that there was a ladder from 2008 on. It's 28 inches wide. These current steps are 3 feet wide by 4 feet into the lake bed. Mr. Dobush is asking to replace essentially this with this. The question that our subcommittee had is, wait, we already have 6 steps into the lake. Why now are we gonna add 6 more steps that were abandoned in 2011 at the lakes? Why are we adding 6 steps? And we couldn't come up with a justification, and we kept saying to you, we're on the lake bed, out 5 feet, and people who come and access the lake are gonna also access and have the opportunity to have those steps that they could run into or indeed their swimming area. Next slide, please. So we've already talked about, this is section 8. These stairs, if they were there, and we'll trust that they were abandoned in 2011. They were removed, so they weren't properly maintained and repaired. Therefore, next slide. Our subcommittee is recommending a compromise. Instead of putting stairs that go 5 feet onto the lake bed when you already have access to the lake and the dock, we're advising, we would have LMAC advise the Board of Selectmen to not approve adding 6 more steps to the dock. Because there's already 6 more steps there, and the previous steps, if they were there, were abandoned 14 years ago. The compromise is, the dock ladder is still there, the posts are still there. So let's repair that or replace that with an appropriate ladder. Example, okay? So put a ladder on the dock. Typically, in our lake and most lakes, there are ladders on docks, not stairs. So our compromise would be not approve the steps, instead approve a dock ladder. And it could be up to 28 feet because the posts are still there, it's 28 inches wide. Typically, all right, ladder frames are 18, it started 18 inches. Example, we have one on our dock at 18 inches. Typically, rungs are 4 to 5 inches, not 10 to 11 inches out. And about 1 inch in height. So. We also, in talking to Isabel, it's on the lake bed, LMAC and wetlands applications would have to be, or at least a discussion would have to be with the wetlands agent, Isabel Kisler. So our compromise is instead of steps, a ladder.
Great. Is that a motion?
Can I just make a quick,
Well, no, in discussion you can, is that a motion?
The subcommittee motion is that LMAC advised the board of selectmen to not approve adding 6 steps on the dock where the current ladder exists. Instead, the dock ladder may be repaired or replaced with appropriate ladder rungs, not steps, positioned straight down from the dock surface and uniformly spaced, et cetera, et cetera.
I second the motion.
Thank you.
Okay, any discussion? Mr. Gilbush?
Mike, I just have a question.
Sure.
There are 6 steps that come down from the land into the lake already.
Yes.
Correct.
Are those steps safe? Are they, do they need repair?
They're
No.
beautiful.
No, they've just been,
They've just been repaired
They've just
or
been-
reordered.
How deep into the water do those stone stairs go?
to the water line.
It goes to the level.
So the water line is the bottom of the stair?
Mhm.
That's, if you look at
It's not on the lake bed.
No, what I mean is you walk down, how many stairs are underwater?
None.
None.
So they have a path to walk in the water and then walk out that slope
Alright, so they're walking-
area.
I see.
To into, so there's a way to walk down
Yeah.
steps and slope,
And then you're walking down the bank.
and then they're walking down the bank, or the motion on the table
Thank you.
is to approve a set of, or a ladder, excuse me, a ladder at that same area off the dock. As a way if someone wants to come out of the water onto the dock.
Just to continue on those steps. Those steps, because the steps that you showed before, Mary, that he wants to put off the dock have a railing.
Right, but they stick out into the lake bed, which is the concern.
But what I'm asking, yeah, those have railings. These steps that are already there in the lake have no railing. Is there any provision for railings to be put there?
He would come back with an application. I think that's a reasonable
That's a
request.
very reasonable solution.
Reasonable request.
My 2 concerns are,
Yeah.
in the 2 plastic steps that are there currently, the first step that are round have been there since 2011 or before. From my documentation, so there was no, the steps that were abandoned were steps that were, I think Matthew Dote told me 2001 or so is when he installed that ladder, because the steps that were there were rocky. So those round steps have been there, those were never abandoned, okay? My only concern with not having something there at all is the next part of the application. Washout that can happen in front of those steps, making, once you get into the lake bed, right. Okay, that is my concern, because the culvert pipe comes out onto the bottom of the steps and onto the lake bed. Okay, we'll skip that discussion till next. But this is why, and the other reason I want to go steps is because as I age and a lot of the other neighbors in that community age, vertically going up a ladder can be hard. I don't know, I mean.
Absolutely, but horizontally, you can walk 16 feet and up the steps on the lakefront, take a left, and you're on your dock. Or off your dock.
Okay.
Why, that's what we couldn't justify.
Is there any precedent on the lake? Cause I'm not thinking that were there stairs off the end of the dock?
There are docks with stairs going in.
Well, there are other, lake walls with stairs.
Well,
Plenty-
right,
Plenty of.
many
those.
of us have
Two
them,
in
but this is a little seems a little unusual to me to build a staircase off.
I believe any place where there are stairs, they're likely grandfathered.
What's that?
They're not part of the dimensions.
Well, and again, do we have any, I'm sorry, Henry, were you done?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Do we have any documentation? And you'll have to forgive me, but I'm looking at the Google image from 2011, and I'm not sure that I see a step there.
Right, that top white, so if you look, bring it up on Google, you can see that white top.
That looks like a fender to me, but
No, if you look on Google Earth and you can zoom in, you can clearly see that it.
all right, but that's not being provided here. You
I
didn't
could
provide,
find no documentation as he provided, and our
For
documentation
that last picture.
would not show that.
well, I'm not seeing anything.
Well, it's in the third page, right? Yeah.
Well, I'm seeing photos, I'm just not seeing photos that are time stamped from a, third party review.
The Google
The
one?
Google one says 2011.
Yeah.
No, yes, this one, yeah, but I don't see stairs.
No, the next page. Last page.
I had it circled. On that picture.
That's from the picture from
This one here,
2020.
No,
No,
the first page,
No.
the third page, the little square.
2011.
yeah, no, I know
Those
that.
step, is that what you're looking at?
No, this picture,
You have this one?
the one where I circled.
yeah,
I mean, look, if you look at it.
Yeah, that's a-
If you look at it on.
I don't see,
In his.
Yeah.
If you go to the website.
Right here.
no, yeah, but that's not time stamped. That, I could have taken that photo yesterday. That's what I'm getting, I'm trying to find,
This is.
Yeah.
This one.
Right there.
I cannot see.
That's 2011.
Yeah.
They apologize.
Well, yeah.
Quality.
So what I need is a straight A steps have been on, this is more convenient for
They
them.
weren't used that person.
No.
Well, I've seen some that are like double.
This is 2011.
Well, no, there was a period of time when I'd say.
Oh, okay.
This would probably be the-
And just this.
And if you went up on three, you just with that big-
Where is this?
You're in this, so they're only.
Well, this says 160 around.
The one I was-
Is this right next, is this between Vining and Carl Foster?
Be sure now, here,
I'm sold on the letter.
Yeah.
I'm sold on this time.
Here's what
Only
we
because
recommend.
there's
Don't have it.
This is like, these stairs are what you would have.
I mean, I can see it.
That's where you have limit. 507, that,
400.
Like,
Yeah, please.
apart from the pictures, I've been around a while too, and I'll agree with Mr. Dobush that those round circular stairs that are not the ones shown on the third page here, but are, kind of classic ones that curve around and have been there for a while. They may not have been there. I haven't been recently. I don't recall seeing these stairs with the ladder attached to them. But the fact of the matter is that at some point, or Mr. Dobush personally was involved with this, there had been a ladder there during the period of time that permits were required to do things. And the ladder was replaced with stairs. Regardless of the year that they were replaced, there's no record in the town.
Correct.
Of an application for a variance to do that. So when they were replaced that way, it was an impermissible, extension of privilege, and so there's no protection or grandfathering going with them.
Yep.
And they, maybe they've run their useful lifetime, and the owner group that, have enjoyed them and used them there have gotten away with it, and all great. If there's more life left in those, they could be told they gotta come out anyway. So, I think the offer of compromise for going back to the stairs.
The ladder.
The ladder.
Yeah.
Which I'm not even sure, was part of the permit, but could have been part of the time that was there when the dock was grandfathered before we're doing regulations.
Yeah.
It is a fair compromise.
Yeah.
There's whether there's a gap in the period of time that these circular stairs were there or not, of 3 years, it doesn't matter. They never were properly requested or approved in the first place.
Okay, so thank you for that, that's, and I think the other issue that we have, and I think Mary was kind of not alluding to, but I think pointing out is that these stairs perpendicular to the dock are going to, already on a narrow piece of property, are going to stick out 5 feet and sort of not really be in fitting with narrow nature of the property, so.
Correct.
Is there any other further discussion on the motion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
I'm saying,
And one abstention, okay. So, Mr. Dobush, you can, put we will recommend to the board of selectmen. You go with a stair to the narrow nature of that property.
The ladder.
The ladder, you got to say.
but if I could, I would like the minutes to reflect that my abstention is due to the fact that we haven't made inquiry of adjoining landowners and other people having rights to use that property, because we have in the past routinely done that. And even if they came in and supported everything Mr. Dolpus would say, which is what I hope they would do for his sake, I still think we might have to tell them, sorry, but it wasn't grandfathered.
Yep.
So that's why I didn't vote no, but I wanted to abstain, so we made it clear that we should be doing that going forward.
Thank you.
But isn't, getting permission or at least notifying the adjacent landowners part of the permit?
Yes, they both know.
Was that?
Both Carl and Jay Vine and Mark Vine are all aware.
Okay.
Carl Foster was made aware.
Yes.
Right, but that adjoining landowners doesn't necessarily include, which we've interpreted to include, and when we're dealing with rights, because they're few and far between where they can do anything. The people that have the right of access should also have the opportunity to weigh in, because as we've been talking here, their right is being cut from 15 feet to 5. Because of the width of the dock and the width of the stairs if they went in, because these stairs are 1 foot further out than the plastic ones.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay, bullet point number 3, request number 3. We addressed this, and in August, we recommended the Board of Selectmen did approve that the pavers that were put into the lake bed be removed. Mr. Dobich has come back with some information. He wants to reinstall the patio pavers and brick border that were removed by the Board of Selectmen. In reinstalling these are going on the town lake bed. The pictures will show in a second. He is suggesting that we need to protect his neighbor's wall and his neighbor's lawn from washout. And all this is done because of a culvert pipe that was installed as approved by wetlands. Because the pipe is on the land, not on the sea, but supported by LMAC. So next slide, just to get everybody reoriented. this is what, we had last August. Here's the new culvert that was put in approximately, I think, 2 years ago. 3 years ago.
Yeah, 2 years ago.
2 years ago, okay? And these 1, 2, 3, 4, and the bricks, okay, were put in by Mr. Dobush initially because he wanted to protect erosion of the lake bed. Okay, accepting we all face erosion of the lake bed. Is it our responsibility as property owners to try to prevent erosion on a lake bed, which is owned by the town? Next slide, okay?
I'm sorry, just real, sorry. Is this mean high level here, the water?
No.
No, no,
It's at-
high level's probably right about here.
Right there,
Right
okay,
about there.
thank you. I'm sorry,
Okay.
when were these photos taken?
These were taken in, last year, August or July last year.
It says after March 2024.
Oh, okay,
Those pictures were taken.
Oh, okay,
like
these were
March.
taken in early,
okay, that makes more, okay, thank you.
and here's the deal, okay? I'm not gonna, the next slide, I think, is a lot of verbiage. Now, Mr. Dobush's premise, okay, for erosion, okay, and the potential to damage the seawall is the new storm drain. Because the storm drain is aimed here, this is the seawall, this is the binding, okay? Well, the storm drain placement also has 2 catch basins. So next slide, I think, shows it. And I spoke with, next slide, I spoke with Isabel Kislick about this. Oh, I'm sorry, go back to, today. Okay, wetlands approved on private property, a new storm drain. When they approved it, and LMAC, was on the same site visit, myself and Jim Santos, with John Allen and Ian Dan and Isabel Kislick, Chip Garrett. They approved it only because from upstream, there are issues on Sleepy Hollow, like any other watershed area that has a hill where water goes down. Okay, water flows down. We all get that. It ends up in the lake. However, they did not want the water to go directly into the lake. Any new storm drain, they're looking to angle it. In addition, there are 2 catch basins to catch sediment. So the purpose of this, and it's been very successful, is the catch basins get the sediment and angle so the water is washed out onto here. Okay? That's the purpose. Next slide. First off, the premise that a stormwater culvert is creating some agita on someone's property is in question, okay? Because the photos that we are showing, that I'm about to show you, okay, were from the biblical rains. There isn't a property on the lake that wasn't impacted and affected by those biblical rains, okay? The catch basins, okay, on this right of way are doing their job. They're catching the sediment and angling the water. So, and I'm sorry that Jim Santos isn't here, but he explained it to me. The head pressure force of the water flow hits those catch basins, hangs a 90-degree right, okay? So there's not a forceful collision on the bindings wall, okay? So that premise, according to Jim Santos, is inaccurate. I'll get to the binding wall and the solutions in terms of upstream. So just so we all visualize what happened, next slide. A historical refresher. This was December 23, January 24. This was all the rain that we got, 9 to 12 inches that poured into the lake. I don't care if you're on Erdoney, Sleepy Hollow, probably Woodland, I didn't see it there. Things would look like a waterfall. Okay, next slide. That rainfall overwhelmed the entire storm system. We had erosion all over and seawall damage all over the lake. Okay, this was from those biblical storms. 2 storms, Valenti called them 50-year storms. We hope we don't see them again for 50 years. Next slide. Just to remind everyone, whether there were storm drains or not, there was erosion all over this lake. This is the Harrington swale. It used to be a swale. It totally washed into the lake. This is doe bushes. Okay? Yes, this may have contributed. The force of the water, though, was waterfalls came from Sleepy Hollow right down over these steps and created an erosion issue. All right, it wasn't one stormwater drain. And again, Jim Santos and Ian Dan, when they approved this set, and they're more the engineers than I am, because we angled that pipe, we slowed down the force, we're not colliding with the wall. Next slide. So, the 2 catch basins, okay, collected the sediment. The pipe at the right angle slows the waterfall. That head pressure thing Santos talks to, all right? In addition, one of the guys brought up the fact that if the water came out and hit the wall, if you put in pavers, you're actually directing it to your neighbor's wall. You potentially are directing the water instead of letting it dissipate and go on to the lake. All right, next slide. So, the binding seawall, this is their seawall, is, according to the person rebuilding it right now, decades old, 30, 40 years old. This erosion was not caused by this stormwater drain. The erosion on that seawall in the front is shown from just decades of usage.
This
So
is findings to the right.
This is findings,
Yeah, got it.
okay? So to say that this is causing this is not making sense. It doesn't go to the premise. Next slide. In addition, and we've talked to Isabel Kislik and IWDC about this, which is why I'm the liaison for both. Upstream, where the right of way begins, there is a swale. This swale and was approved 2 years ago to be repaired. If you remember Botticello's, they repaired it beautifully, and there's no issue now between Botticello's and Wheelers. We have encouraged, and yet it has not happened, Mr. Dobush, on several occasions to repair the swale, put in the appropriate stones, size.
The riprap.
Yeah, riprap, thank you. And that is going
To
to diminish some of
slow the
your
water down there.
issues. Slow the water, slow the sediment, et cetera.
Yeah. So in other words, fixing it at the root instead of down.
At the end,
Exactly.
down.
At the end.
Is that where they walk down though to get to the lake?
No, they won't.
Now,
They
actually,
walk down a dirt road?
they
Oh, I
walk
see
down
now,
this
I
road,
see now.
and it's a dirt road because they're
Yeah, I
repairing
see it down
lines
there.
right now, yeah. So next slide. Therefore, to reinstall these patio, it doesn't do anything to stop erosion on the lake bed. And if we do that, then we might as well let everyone stop erosion on the lake bed with pavers and call it Columbia Lake Swimming Pool. Or the subcommittee, and Rob texted me today after he read it and said, we should advise the Board of Selectmen to keep its decision as its decision. That those bricks and pavers were to come out in August, they should come out immediately. Further, we advise Mr. Dobush to work with wetlands, work with IWWC, work with the town to seek solutions upstream. That is going to mitigate anything that he's saying about the forcible use of one stormwater drain.
Fair enough. Is that your motion?
Motion.
Second? Any discussion?
Yeah, I'm gonna oppose the motion because of the fact I don't consider ourselves engineers. We're applying guidelines about building docks and walls and measurements and so forth. What I feel should be done here is we should defer to wetlands and IWCC and let them make the decision. And I would agree that they probably ought to be saying, seek solutions upstream. They will know quite well whether the force against the wall has been decreased. I'm glad to know the sediment basins are working, but the water force could still dig out. And I'm saying this because I would also encourage wetlands or IWCC to work on reducing erosion at all of those locations, because one way or the other, erosion is not good for the lake bed. Because it's washing out the lake bed, it's washing out the critters that are there, and it encourages vigilante filling in of and smoothing out. And all that ends up doing is usually introducing new material into the lake, because what washed out is out past 6 feet where the water ends.
Henry,
Understood, Henry.
go ahead.
Or not, well, if you,
Just to build on that, Henry, that's why we need to update the watershed plan. We got to the low hanging fruit, we never addressed stormwater drainage, and that is a town IWCC LMAC.
fair enough, but to speak to just this,
Correct.
if I read what the motion is, I'm not seeing us acting as an engineer, we're just saying, have the brick and patio pavers removed. Because it's not the natural part of the lake bed. Which is per our purview.
For our guidelines.
Our guidelines, and that, again, we're defaulting to the wetlands agent, the IWWC in the town of Columbia to seek solutions upstream. We're not, I don't hear that Mary's proposing any solutions.
No, well, but again, our things are guidelines. And we have varied the guidelines from time to time, and I'm not saying that we vary them on our own thing, but I'm just suggesting that we defer.
However, Henry, we did approve and advise the board of selectmen
Already,
in August already.
Right, but we've got
To
this
remove
new,
the
we got
pavers
this
from
new
the lake.
information.
The papers removed, that's. The papers were removed.
no.
Yeah,
So the papers are still in place and they were asked to be removed.
So did they get washed away? What was the cinder blocks? Is that what it looks like now? The cinder
No,
blocks?
those I put temporarily before I put the pavers. The pavers along the wall are gone because Jim is
Oh, Jim.
rebuilding, planning to spending,
Yeah.
who knows how much rebuilding that wall.
Yeah.
And Jim, I'm otherwise not here to chime in, worried about the lake bed undermining under the new wall. True, the water with the pavers there, the water's gonna go that way no matter what. His only concern was undermining the new wall. I mean,
and pavers
and that,
likes to do that.
So, so you removed the papers.
Yeah.
the pavers are 90% gone. There's two, I think,
The brick,
right in front of the step, and that's it.
I just wondered, is there a safety problem, safety hazard, somebody breaking an ankle or something?
It all
walking
depends
down?
on the washer. I can't say that.
Well,
Otherwise,
those brick look like post covers to me.
I know, that's the only thing, is if there was a hole or something, you gotta
No, no,
stop
no,
it
I'm talking about
temporarily
brick
till
or
the
whatever.
inland wetland can look at
I
it.
mean,
No-
you can
no
say that
safety.
on any lake bed property.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
I go in front of my,
We have just said that those 6 steps are safe to walk into a lake. We're now saying that possibly
They're
that
not.
pipe could create a hole at the base of those 6 steps. That's why I say it should be deferred.
Yeah,
I think,
No, I just wanna make
defer
sure
to,
there was
but
immediate
looking at what you did there, the town made you put that big pipe in.
Yeah.
And as much as you say visually, it looks to me like that pipe washed out the ground and went up to that wall. And I can see, looking at the dam we have, it has the exact same problem. And they reinforced the wall and paved what you were trying to do with the pavers to stop it from washing out. So I'd have to say your solution is the solution. And I'm not gonna vote for it.
well, again, that can all be debated but us approving pavers on the lake bed is not part of our guidelines.
Correct.
Yeah, I would propose not approving them. I would propose deferring to the better authority.
You already got a
IWWC.
motion, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
this
the motion
commission
was what that said.
Determine, bring a
Can you go back?
binding, bring a permit.
Let's vote on the motion and then the.
Okay,
But it didn't mention.
so is there any further discussion?
What is the actual motion now?
It's right
Well,
there.
it's right
Yeah.
there,
Right there.
so.
I know.
All
Yeah.
Mary's suggesting is that we, in fact, abide by the original decision to remove the pavers. And that Mr. Dobush work with wetlands
That's deferring. That
for the
seems to be
solution.
deferring.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's not deferring, it's weighing in to say that the paver should be removed.
But we already did that in August.
Right, I would let that stand and I would let inland wetlands have unfettered discretion in IWWC to determine whether the pavers should be there or not.
they're gonna get there already, but either way,
Wetlands approved it last August.
Approved.
removing the bricks.
Remove it.
Yeah.
Wetlands in conjunction with LMAC. It had to
But it
be
seems like
joint.
there's now some more
I spoke
information.
with Isabel yesterday.
And they can always override this.
Correct.
We're weighing in on what our purview is, and that's what we're doing.
Okay.
So, any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We have, wait a minute,
Wait.
we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Anybody else?
No.
No? Opposed?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Ooh, interesting.
Any, what? Well, it's 5-4.
Correct.
Okay, so 5-4, it passes. Any abstentions? Okay. It's passed 5-4.
And I'm happy to update Isabel Kislev, and I would refer Mr. Goldrich to him.
Yeah,
absolutely.
He wants to
One,
take it.
one last comment, I'm picking up enough of your guys' times. I'm gonna be reaching out to, Isabel about extending the original permit out inspection. I think she can extend it out 3 more years. I don't know if that's slow. Maybe if she can do that.
Isabel has that opportunity.
Sorry, Mike, I just wanted to apologize to Mr. Dobush because he came to us last month and lost a month because we had a miscommunication about what we were expecting from you, so we tabled the conversation. And I know we've talked about this a number of times here, so apologies that it's taken so long to get some resolution to you. And I want to compliment the subcommittee because they put a lot of time into this, a lot of time.
Yeah, thank you.
Beautiful presentation, Mary. Thank you.
very much. A lot of work, Mary.
I think when it comes to this type of thing, we really have to visually see it. I mean, that's either asking all of you to come over, so I can, or we've got to get good video or pictures of it.
Yeah.
We are, on very short time, so, I'm just gonna, yes.
Could we refer the agenda and address the town ordinance at the town launch handout? Thank you.
So. So I second the motion, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay,
Does that mean we're not gonna talk about anything else tonight?
if we have time, but we're running out of time after this.
Okay, I just wanted to mention, if you got to the TRC report, that I found this lovely brochure.
Thank you.
That LMAC sent out
I
to the,
designed it.
well, it was very nicely done. And as you know, one of TRC's recommendations was to push out a
Yeah.
brochure, so I don't think we have to reinvent the wheel, and it's
Well,
still,
I know, I did the first version of that.
it's still quite
Yeah,
appropriate, so we don't have to start over.
great,
Or spend a lot of money to have somebody
okay,
make a brochure.
excellent, yep. Henry?
Well, Mary should really talk to this, but, because I've been, away and she's carried the weight of it. And, but in Mark's request and, the selectmen's request, action proceeded while I was gone because we didn't want to wait until I came back and move things along because we wanted to get something done this year. And what we're trying to do is to come up with an ordinance that just focuses on launching access to the lake. And by doing so, we come under an environmental protection statute that doesn't require DEP review and approval. So what Mary did was to take the statute that, or the ordinance that presently deals with the AIS, the invasive species thing, and to bring some of the things about launching into it so that we had one kind of amalgamated action that dealt with horsepower, dealt with length, dealt with residency, dealt with inspection for AIS, also addressed the selectmen's wish to make sure that motorboats are only launched at the beach and from nowhere else. And that all non-motorboats, whether they go into the beach or from private property, are inspected, and to put some teeth into the penalty provisions and various other things. Mary did a great job, and Rich Roberts and other people from my firm have kibitzed on the thing and have participated. There was a conference call that involved Mark and two conference call, Mark and Mary and Steve Everett, Bob Powell on one or whatever, and the three of the people at Haller and Sage, and they went over some things and made some comments. Mary and I spoke yesterday. She has broken out the fact-finding things and made some of the edits. I told her I was gonna try to edit it today and get them to her, but I wasn't gonna be able to get them to her in time to amalgamate. So she's passed out hers. I've done a revision during the course of today, probably full of typos because I'm still dealing with jet lag, but I haven't changed anything substantively. I've beefed up the penalty provisions and looked to tie them into existing enforcement provisions in our town ordinances, and to make clear what the structure is that we're doing here. And before I go further with that, or Mary goes further with that, we also talked about our timeline and how we get this done. And so I want to put that on the table so that we're aware of it as we talk. But the goal here is for LMAC to be endorsing something for review by Halloran and Sage by March 28th. So Halloran and Sage can have about 3 or 4 days to react to it, make any polishes or tweaks before the first selectmen's meeting in the first week in April. Because we're looking for that to be presented to the selectmen at that time for review and determination on how politically to proceed. They'll get independent guidance from Halloran and Sage about what their options are versus public hearing versus town meeting versus whatever, and make a decision so that we can make decisions, the town being, or they can make decisions, and this can be voted on in some fashion in time for this season. It does not have to be based on the statute, which is not, I don't think, referenced here, but I think we will want to make a reference to it in the legislative history to it. Doesn't require deep approval. It is also, however, going to require removing the parts that we've taken out of other other ordinances that did require deep approval from those other ordinances, strip them out, basically. So the only amendment to the other ordinances would be stripping stuff out. And the question then becomes, you know, and I don't want to weigh in on this tonight, do we then need to report the stripped down version to deep for review and approval? One of the things in reporting it to deep for review and approval and say, you know, we're going to be clear, we're trying to do an end around having them, weigh in on our launch regulations, which they said in our work with them last year, we had, the right to do. And I know historically, there is, precedent and feeling within the town to limit the amount that we interact with DEEP in the state and so forth. That's long standing because it's our lake since 1933, et cetera, et cetera. However, we gotta be careful because at some point, phosphorus or invasive species could easily become a problem, and we could be looking for money other than from tax dollars to get that done. And it probably would be good to have a reasonable working relationship with the state at that time. So we have to be judicious and careful, but firm. So, I mean, that kind of sets the stage for the work project. Again, the selectmen have encouraged a stiffer position than what we had with last year, because we're now saying nobody can launch a motorboat. I can't put my aluminum boat in at my dock and bring my 10 horsepower engine down and put it on and drive it around. I'm gonna have to get it to the beach for inspection. And the same is true for anything that has a motor on it. If you take a sailboat over to launch it at the beach, it's gonna be considered that your trailer and your car are motorboats for purposes of inspection, because we want you to inspect the trailer and whatnot. You have to inspect the boat anyway as what we now define as a non-motorized watercraft. And all non-motorized watercraft is practically everything else. And because it was so open-ended, I decided, well, I was gonna clarify that a little bit. So in mine, I put in that it includes tubes, tow ropes and towables and whatever, because if you've done tubes, tow ropes and whatever in Connecticut River, they ought to be inspected too. And somebody can say, oh, that's overreaching, let's take it out. I put it in there so we could talk about it and think about it. And in any event, the things that are non-motorboats can be, if brought to the beach, have to be launched from the boat launch and go through the standard inspection. If they're launched, but they can also be launched from private property with the homeowner's permission, as long as they are self-inspected in accordance with the inspection procedures. And I've introduced, and this could come out too, but I introduced the concept of creating a record. Because if Marine Patrol stops somebody on the lake and says, what are you doing here? They say, well, I came in on John Smith's property and he gave me permission. And he said, well, who did the inspection? And he said, well, John Smith. And you go over to John Smith, and John Smith's covering his butt and says, yeah, I did the inspection. But if he had written down before the guy went out that the inspection was done, and there, at least you got a little backup, for enforcement. Because we are putting an enforcement clause that says at the moment, $250 per offense. I've added to what was there before to say that if it's repetitive, you don't take your boat out, it's $250 each day. After every 7-day period, it doubles for the subsequent 7 days. So that we can have this become something that people don't just see as a cost of doing business on Columbia Lake. We've also put in that if you've paid a $250 fine and took your boat out, but the following week, you do the same thing, thinking you're gonna get away with it again, it'll double. So it doubles if you, don't get it out within 7 days, and the fines start doubling if you have sequential fines on, the same basis. And there'll be a hearing procedure, a citation procedure, and an enforcement, procedure that, allows the town, to do this. So there's a lot here that changes things. This is kind of controversial in terms of requiring all boats to be launched motorboats to be launched at the beach. Hopefully that isn't too difficult, because I think 90% of them, 99% of them are done there now. And we'll be tightening up the self-inspection requirement, and, if that requirement of making a note that I've done the inspection on a friend who brought a boat to my house, becomes important, because if I haven't done it, and the lake patrol comes over and says, well, where's your report? And I said, well, I was gonna get around to writing it, was that you're supposed to have it here, $250, please. It will get people to, pay attention. So, but that may be too much. I'm not necessarily advocating it. I'm putting it out there so we think about it. How much teeth do we want to, put into that?
To kind of get back to the overall objective today, and just a couple of acknowledgements. First off, this is Bob Powell's subcommittee. Bob asked me to take this on until he gets back. He has been involved with all this, he's read it, and we've been emailing each other. We've had 2 conference calls with town attorneys, so we do have their right now blessing that for the sake of the lake, and that's the bottom line, the sake of the lake, we need to consider a town launch at the town beach ordinance for all motorboats. There are other perhaps rationale relative to ensuring that we keep the sake of the lake for town residents. And that town residents only use our lake. And that is why the way we can write this, and Deep has said, they cannot touch us going over town property. So we can write this ordinance appropriately for the sake of the lake in terms of registration, horsepower, motorboat, AIS, etc. And we're in good stead as of today with the attorneys.
I got a question.
I would, what I would cut to the chase is, on the timeline, we need to do 3, 4, and 5 within the next couple of weeks. And 3 and 4 is, we need a special meeting. Take time to review this. We'll take your questions, obviously. Take time to give us your comments via email. We'll put it all together, but we need a special meeting to hash through this and to finalize it. David?
The way it's written here, it says using the boat one. And would that put it in with the DEP? Should it say town property using the, it's only the land, it's only the land up to the water that we want to restrict. So if it's called a boat ramp, maybe the DEP, I'm just saying this,
It makes sense.
No one is allowed to use the area in front of the boat ramp or something like that. Or how would we-
We can define, we have a definition of town boat launch, and we can define it as the ramp. I define it as the asphalt ramp sloping into the lake, and we can just simply add above mean high water.
Right, yeah, that's what I'm saying, that's what exactly what I'm getting at.
And Mary didn't mention, I didn't mention this, we've also brought over the horsepower limits, the residential horsepower and the inspection, because and focus on the findings of fact, because as well as the ordinance, because the findings of fact are what support the ability to do this under an environmental law that allows the town to
Local municipality.
to govern its wetlands and the surrounding areas. And so we're using that ordinance to say, the town's wetland, which is the whole of the lake and, but also importantly, the boundary around the lake. And so consequently, we're saying that'll gives us, we're arguing, that gives us the authority to control launching anywhere.
How would that be presented, Henry?
Pardon?
The findings of fact, how does that get codified?
The findings of fact, as Mary points out, can be incorporated into the statute, but it is also generally stated and read into the minutes, printed into the minutes of the adopting meeting. I favor, I mean, there's various ways to go, but I favor doing that because then that's putting the stamp on it at that time, and it can always be referred to, and Mark and others can say, you know, here's this, but you gotta know about this as well. But it also allows the town at a later time to add arguments to why this is a good idea as they come along. If it's part of the ordinance, you really
You
can't
gotta change.
add another reason without amending the ordinance. But, you know, facts from the DEP or other studies from the Connecticut Federation of Lakes or whatever may just continuously increase our ammunition, and we'd want to be able to introduce that as subsequent rationale that continues to further the support for what we've
That
done.
makes a lot of sense, thank you.
Earlier, Henry, when you were talking about the voting, the ordinances from the DEP, did you mean that we may not have to refile that by just crossing out certain ones?
I don't know, we'll have to,
Is that what you meant?
that's for my partners to weigh in on. I haven't been back long enough to look at the statutes to say that, because we would be amending that ordinance by taking
By
stuff,
eliminating them, all right,
but we wouldn't be adding anything new.
yeah,
But at the same time, it does get into, you know, what's politic as opposed to how far can you push
yeah.
what we wanna do and accomplish here. And I will again be looking to some of my partners that do some of that legislative activity to give us some thoughts and guidance as to the smooth way to broach this with the deed.
Cause it looks like you got like 95% of it on this page. There won't be much on the next if you cross the lines out of the other.
Well,
Yes and no.
Yeah.
I'm gonna, please read Mary's, but when you're thinking of other alternatives and getting them to the committee, you may want to look at mine, which incorporates some of these other ideas and either say yes or no. Because and a lot of what I've done here is to just you know, try to take legal language and put it in, but I've also looked to take out in places where we give the rationale and just say this is it, because the rationale is gonna be stated separately. So in some places it gets short. I'm also recommending, because you'll see in here now, it still has some of the rules that were in this ordinance from the very beginning, with dealing with how you back a boat down the ramp, glass on the beach, alcohol on the beach, etc., and saying, let's just leave those parts in the existing ordinance.
Yeah.
And have this just be dealing with launching and the protection of the environment. So that's kind of how we're you know, what.
Is there like a beach ordinance now about what people can do at the beach? I
Well,
know
there
there
are-
is a sign that's not there anymore.
Yeah, well, there are some provisions to the beach ordinance that are in our existing ordinance about inspections, because
Correct.
at the time we were bringing inspections on board, looking to close the gate, we determined that we would try to do it by amending an existing ordinance rather than creating a new one, so that it might help us with the salesmanship of the situation. And so consequently, we took the beach ordinance, because that's where the boat launch was, to put the inspection stuff in. Now it seems, again, because we're looking to support it by other reasons, that it makes better sense to have it stand alone and to bring over the provisions about horsepower, about boat length, and about residency, because they all go to can be directed to environmental issues about that. If you read their rationale, you'll find out about stirring up the lake. The more boats you have to stir up the lake, you get more problems. The larger the engine you get more problems. The larger the displacement and the length of the boat, you get more problems. And so we're looking at the environmental side of all of these issues to bring it into a launch control mechanism.
With the target date, the final target date to present to the board
Is,
April 22nd,
April 8th.
April 8th.
April 8th, so we need to have a meeting.
It's up to the board to determine, although the board. My
Sense.
instinct from discussions with Steve is they want this for this season.
Can I add something here? We're in a couple of the meetings that, your firm weighed in and changed 190-17 findings of fact down to one paragraph. But what you vetted was the original findings of fact.
I don't have that.
Well, what Henry's got here is R117 that is,
Yeah,
all of you is one paragraph. Henry's got a page and a half of 190.
well, I have the one that you showed me yesterday. I hadn't cut it out yet. And so I just,
Okay.
yeah.
My point was, Howard Sage felt that if we get into engine power and what it does to the lake, and if we start defining physics in our findings of facts, that they might push back and say,
No. The pushback, which we already removed, was public safety for recreational users, because that's Deep's purview, not
okay.
ours. It was not
Yeah.
relative.
So is this correct? Because I'm looking at 190-17 as one paragraph that was handed out tonight.
Who handed, which one?
Yes, that's because Mary has version 2 of findings of fact.
At least that is what.
Yeah, this was from Rich.
I think they're talking about this.
Town
They
ordinance
wanted
intent.
condensed actually.
Yes, and I
Yeah,
have,
that's the intent. We took the findings of fact out of the ordinance, proposed ordinance, and put it as the first page rationale.
Okay, so Henry, the page and a half is modifying your findings of fact.
correct, and if you look at my page 3, I've got the comments on the intent.
Oh, so I gotta cut and paste it to, I already took it out.
Yeah, well, mine, you took out the, but there still is the 190-18 town ordinance intent, right?
Right,
Yes,
that needs to be there.
yes, that's right, and that's, so Mark's saying it's a short paragraph, that's this paragraph, and I modified it.
The intent is still in.
It's still, and I haven't changed any of the facts that Howard and Sage was supporting. The rest of it is for internal town use and supporting the ordinance. And
So you updated the facts, you just didn't cut it.
I
out.
didn't cut it out,
So
correct?
send me the email and I'll
Yeah,
take it.
yeah, I
So-
did.
What should everyone look at from Henry? Because you're sending everybody back to analyze this. Should we wait until you send a new email to the whole board after you modify it?
Yeah, you didn't get my text. You, Bob and I have to talk about this before we put this out, because we
Correct.
have two versions now.
Yes, yes.
So,
That's
That's
not
my
great.
point.
Well, I
That's
think
not
that's what
helpful.
I think that's what Henry was trying to say.
Yeah.
Henry's saying his isn't quite right,
Yeah,
but I don't want the whole board
yeah.
weighing
going-
in on
going
something that's
through
not
this
right.
and then-
When we have a
All right, so,
version that,
no,
So,
that
in
makes
other
perfect
words,
sense.
we have some work to do.
Thank you, Mark.
So,
and then
what's
get
the-
it back out.
fair enough.
So with that said, what do you think your timing is to A, tackle what you have in front of you to codify the two? And then,
Well, we're
For us,
hoping to get your feedback, everyone, all LMAC feedback by March 18th. So Henry, you and I have to work Wednesday, over the next couple of days to get out a combined.
Yeah, and I don't think that'll be hard. You can look at what I've done and we can.
I have no pride of authorship, I see what you've done.
Yeah, but I mean, you can also weigh in on the new ideas that I put in.
Right. Right.
Because you've had I didn't participate in the
You were
conference
at the
call.
second.
But I did have a lengthy conversation with Rich Roberts this afternoon.
Okay,
And about the kinds of things that I was thinking of doing, and he had say, well, if
So
people wanna
we'll-
go that way, that'll work.
we'll amend the timeline to no later than next Monday. Get to all LMAC members electronic copy of the fact finding outside of the ordinance and the ordinance proposal as is.
Yeah, so they're separate
by,
documents.
so by the 10th.
Two set, so that's the
By the
10th,
10th.
Monday the 10th.
Yeah, okay.
So Henry, can you do that?
Yes, I mean, I am not gonna do any more of it at the moment until you've reacted to it.
And then
so,
this has got to go to Bob.
But then
and then we can have a conversation.
We need to meet and.
Yeah.
So then,
I think,
Amend the timeline to March 10th, LMAC members go.
I
right,
think,
yeah,
the,
no, that's great.
the challenge will be just pulling it all together into one draft after we've had the conversation.
What is the special meeting date?
Well,
Well, then-
that was the next step, so,
Yes.
so when should we do next Wednesday, the 12th?
Yeah, that's tight for them.
That's tight.
They gotta have every.
Well, we're gonna have it by the 10th.
Got it. The people have to have time to review it and digest.
What about something
Yeah,
on
I'm
the
a slow
14th?
reader.
that's a Friday,
Yeah,
What about the 14th? Well, this-
not ideal.
How about the 19th?
The evening of the 19th, I
Remember,
could
you can
do, I
always
can't
do it as a
do,
Zoom meeting.
I can't do Monday
17th?
and Tuesday, I can't do the 17th.
Monday?
No,
No, Monday and Tuesday are out, Wednesday night I could do the 19th.
Wednesday,
The 19th.
19th, yeah.
How about the 19th?
I have to be out of town, but I can try to drive. I'm gonna be in Newport.
Greg is nodding.
all right.
Can you give us?
I'll make it work.
The
I'll
19th.
make it work.
Well, can I call in? Are you gonna have a special meeting? I can call in?
Mark, can we use this room on the 19th for Zoom? For any LMAC member?
Hold on, no, the 19th is 5-pack.
Ooh.
Yeah, but they suck.
You can
so.
do it.
I think I'm presenting the town budget on the 19th.
Can I call in on a person's phone? And I definitely wanna be part of it. I definitely, and I will definitely give any feedback.
You're just calling.
But the 19th, I'm in Newport and I don't want to
But
drive.
you could run a meeting totally remotely, it just won't have an owl. You'd have to.
Oh, you mean run it via Zoom?
Yeah, you
From
could do-
somewhere else.
yeah, you
Yeah,
could
but
do it
that's tough for
I
people that
think
really
we
hear.
need people in.
Well,
Yeah.
5-pack will be in this room on the 19th.
Yeah,
How
we're
about,
gonna go to Beckish.
how about
I'll
Thursday,
call Bernadette.
Yeah, there's just no Zoom over there.
Yeah, I know.
how about the
Well, you
20th?
got your cameras on your phone.
No, let's shoot for the 19th.
Okay,
Let's shoot for the 19th.
Yeah, we'd have to ask, I don't see anything at Beckish, I see Zumba at Yeoman's and 5-pack in the conference, so.
So I'll call Bernadette
You call
tomorrow.
me or FaceTime or something.
I'll FaceTime in.
Oh,
Well, I don't know, you'll be able to FaceTime, we'll see what we have.
well, we'll get you.
Worst case
Yeah.
scenario, just
Use your phone.
use the phone.
That's what I meant. I'll FaceTime on my phone.
yeah, you might just have problems here.
No, I'm saying is there won't be any value in FaceTiming, you can call in and just listen.
Yes.
That's different from
Just call
FaceTime.
someone.
Oh, I was just trying to.
There's no value in FaceTime.
Yeah.
We can't do a
You
Zoom
won't be able
without,
to see anything.
without that thing, I mean,
We don't have that at Beckish.
no, but you can still Zoom. I mean,
You can still.
Karen does
Zoom.
that.
Well, you can Zoom on-
Well, we have
I have-
limited technology over there,
So
so.
you're limited, even if we Zoom with one of
I don't
our.
think I wanna complicate
laptops,
the
you're-
meeting.
you're
I'll
limited
call
to
in.
how-
I'll
Yeah.
make my comments. I'll call in.
That would be great.
I
That would
do
be
not
great.
need to
We
complicate.
could talk before if you had comments.
Yeah, we do that a lot, we
Definitely.
put a
We
phone
want
in
your
the table.
feedback
and have a
before.
meeting.
I know that.
Yeah.
You got that.
Right, March 19th
Try to
at
do that
7
too.
p.m.
So Wednesday, March 19th.
You need to email us, too. I never got
7 p.m. as always.
Yep, yep.
it, okay? Assuming we can get that, and
We need to check that with.
if we can't,
Be back
Like,
on the 23rd for one day.
It's available.
Yep.
If we can't, maybe we can use the church.
But I can try to do the phone.
or in my wine cellar.
We surely will bring a class.
March.
We got plenty.
All right, so right now, revision, so do you wanna take a little extra time to get your versions together? By Monday, or do you wanna say Wednesday, and then still gives everybody?
Yeah, I can't even remember what I'm doing tomorrow.
Well, that's why I'm offering, if we're not meeting until the 19th, there's a
So-
few extra days, say
Yeah,
by
Henry,
the 12th.
if I consolidate all this, you and I and Bob we should Zoom Bob in, review it. So if I could get Bob for next Monday, are you available on a Zoom?
Let me check. I'm stuck in the middle of this.
What time is this
update.
special meeting? What time is this?
But I tried to turn it off and turn it back on again. to
That's
see
a
if-
bad idea.
Well, let's just give you an
No.
extra couple of
All right,
days. So
thank
it's
you.
by the 12th, you can meet on the 10th, I'm just trying to give, if we're this far out,
Awesome.
so.
I appreciate it.
So, okay, so right now, next steps are revise existing versions
Yeah,
by Wednesday, March 12th.
yeah,
Special meeting, 7 PM, Wednesday, March 19th at Beckish right now, pending confirmation.
right. And then, wow, we can get it to consolidated to the attorneys early. That, but the other is better.
Yeah, but we still, once we discuss it, then you're gonna have to create the next.
Another version.
The next version,
Yeah.
that's.
But
You're the
hopefully,
secretary, aren't you?
For your basketball team.
Hopefully,
not for
hopefully
LMAC.
revisions are just as positive.
Yeah.
She really is. Yeah, see the email she sends out, another loss.
So are we gonna see a version with redaction lines, or are we gonna see a full?
You probably,
Original version.
I'm gonna recommend that we give them just a clean version.
Lane, would you prefer?
That's a lot
clean?
easier for me, yeah.
Yeah, because of the fact that the changes are really for Mary, Bob, and I, and Howard and Sage to look at.
Well, but was your starting point the ordinances that exist today?
No,
Well, there isn't that much in it that's being kept. You know,
Okay,
there
'cause
are a
I-
few there's half a dozen sentences here, half a dozen sentences there. It's mostly the ideas that are
Okay.
kept.
In a perfect world, I'd like a clean copy of what you create and then a red line against whatever is on file.
Okay.
you're gonna have to help.
So-
It's all,
okay, so are we complete with this?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, I'm gonna.
sorry,
we
I
have-
just, I have to compliment Henry, because he only came back, yes, right? Yes,
Yeah.
or
New
no?
Zealand.
From New Zealand, and
Yeah.
he's cranked out
Thank
smart.
you.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
Did you get
Wow.
any sleep?
Pardon?
Did you get any sleep?
Oh, well, the interesting thing is, you get up in the middle of the night and you wanna sleep from 8 o'clock until 10 o'clock in the morning, because it's like 1 to 3 their time, and my
Yeah.
biological clock is just still,
Yeah,
you're trying to use melatonin to straighten it out.
so, in 30 seconds or less, is there anything anyone wants to, cover tonight?
Oh, God.
These are back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they are.
Property,
There.
where are you cheating?
Okay.
The geese are there.
Oh, yeah, there were 8. Yeah, you know what?
Adeling would be the one thing, because I wanna do a meeting next week
Yeah,
to just kind of pull the team together and say, where are we, what do we got for equipment?
I do have to
Thank
tell
you.
So
you,
that's an informal meeting as a
That's
subcommittee.
correct.
And if
Okay,
you
so
need
you'll
to
call that with.
I'm gonna
whoever
do
your
that.
team
My
is.
question for tonight was the Adeling thing. Yes.
did we get letters out to Cobb's or,
I don't know that. Was that requested to
Last
Jess?
month.
yes,
I don't know.
I think that's not, okay. I'll follow up tomorrow.
Yeah,
Are
call,
you around tomorrow?
no, but Jen is.
Okay.
And I just left a note to schedule Beckish for the 19th at 7.
You're talking about access. permission, right?
Right.
That's it.
Yeah, oh, there's a green laser that they hate.
Okay.
And I have two new Scottish Terriers that would happily
All right.
chase them.
Awesome.
They,
But
they're,
Adeline, we gotta get going on
Yep.
ASAP, right?
Yeah.
yes.
We probably should talk about ice off on the lake too.
Okay, let's finish the skis thing, because we got 15 seconds.
Yeah.
All right, so is that it?
I'm good. I'm gonna connect with Mary.
And we, on that, if you need any other equipment, you still have some supply line money
Right.
if the board would allow you to use it.
Oh, get your little.
You can deliver the Porsche 911 to my house.
With the green headlights?
That's why.
Yes. Keep those things on.
Henry, what do you got?
There's still 4 to 6 inches of hard ice on the lake. The rain is taking it out. But I would hope that people can leave it to the dam committee, that when we get down to very little ice on the lake that's punky, we can, start to have the lake fill.
Aren't you there
It's
yet?
been filling for 3 weeks.
Yeah, it's -4 about.
Yeah,
We've
It's
been,
all-
we're-
and we have to be within -3.6 and
Yeah, we've had it for a while.
-4.
Yeah,
But we haven't had much.
Minus
ice.
three.
yeah, but now we gotta worry about the fact that the ice is still there and the water's coming up and it can be, problematic.
Mother Nature, I'm sorry.
The floating ice will take out the dock,
Yes,
but it won't move any rocks.
no,
It's not
ready to
take out one of my docks.
Yeah, I got.
But, I mean, we've got,
but it may be
We
Mother
do
Nature,
have-
but our regulations do say that you don't let it fill past a certain point until.
I thought that was -3.6.
but I mean, we are getting freezing temps at night, just for the next.
Yeah,
4 or
and
5
that's,
days.
that's really not gonna add anything. It's really,
Yeah,
getting the stuff that is still clear ice,
Understood.
to get the punky ice.
should be all gone at least in 2 weeks.
Yes,
We've been saying
I would
we
say
go
by
about
the
it.
15th, 17th, by the time we have a special meeting, we should have it open. late.
The 20s are overnight, so it's gonna slow that very substantially. So, all right, so any action at the dam?
Not at the moment, as long as we're prepared to hold based on the rain at whatever.
Is it pouring yet?
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
It was?
Yeah.
Whatever the distance is that you can come up before ice is.
So it's probably -4 right now. I'm not sure, but I didn't get over there, but
That's just.
there's a lot of
something else.
floating.
We were -4.3,
Okay,
-4.3.
it might be higher than that now.
Yeah.
If we had solid ice, it's at a dangerous spot, but we don't have solid ice up the shores.
At the same time, the lake may be allowed to rise to 3.36 inches
Without ice.
below until all ice essentially is gone.
Right,
So 3.6 and.
yeah, so we gotta be watching for 3.6 and then get rid of that as soon as we've got just punky ice.
Okay.
All right,
Which is cool.
Yeah. I think-
all right. So with that said. Anybody wanna make a motion to?
Motion.
Oh, we have a motion to, all right. All in favor, aye, any opposed?
I know.
It's 9:04, meeting ends at 9:04. We've got it in the